Welcome back. Welcome back. It's Thursday. It is a December to remember. It is the 3rd. The year is 2020. Welcome aboard. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast, and we are episode 431.
431?
That sounds like a lot. You know, we do this sometimes. I'm like, that's not really that many. And then weird numbers pop up, and I'm thinking, that's kind of a lot. We've talked a lot.
We have talked a lot. That's 431 hours.
At least, at minimum. Plus, we should, make sure that you're aware that we spend at least 7 or 8 hours pre-shoot of this podcast doing very in-depth preparation and outlines for podcast that we do. No, it's probably exactly 434 hours because we basically just sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride, as hopefully you do as well. But we appreciate you tuning in. If it's your first time, thank you. We know you have a lot of options in the podcast universe, as well as triathlon-related podcasts, and that's what we are. We are related. Triathlon-related podcasts. We cover all things: swim, bike, run, the disciplines, the trainings, the outlines, the race recaps, the race previews. Sometimes we'll go into our athletes' training, what Mike and I are both going through personally as both coaches and athletes. Sometimes we'll hop into our Facebook group, which you can search, Crushing Iron Group, answer one simple question, we'll let you in. A lot of awesome people in there with varying athletic abilities and experiences, from beginners or even athletes that have never participated in triathlon to Ironman champions. So hop in there, be a part of the conversation. A lot of great people in there. But for the most part, Mike and I just sit back as best friends, cohorts, fellow triathlete buddies, and do the best we can to share our experiences, the things we've gone through, our strengths, oftentimes our weaknesses, the things we've overcome, and our successes, and hopefully you can take some kind of a positive nugget from it, apply it to your daily life in your way. We are not professionals. We are not experts. We don't claim to be. We are just guys that have been kind of through the ringer. We kind of been there, and we've worked with a lot of athletes who've done the same. And if we can, we can prevent you, or at least steer you in a direction where you don't have to kind of go through the same headaches and sometimes heartbreaks that we have gone through as both coaches and athletes, and we have done our job. No sponsors, no ads, one agenda, and that is to keep you happy and healthy on your triathlon endurance journey.
Yeah, we're kicking back on our flip-flops and our Hokas.
I've got, you definitely.
I'm old man in it, man.
You are old man.
You said, as coaches and athletes, and I want to mention the club, C26 Triathlon. If you go to the coaching tab, you can pull down that menu and look at the club, which is we plan out the whole year for you next year around your races, and take a lot of stress off your back and all that kind of stuff. So check that out. We'll mention it again later, but
it is. It's a great program that you're heading up this year. We've done it, we did it last year, and then really the year before that was when we launched it. But we do a weekly Zoom call with our team, and we did that yesterday, and I kind of went through how to pick your A race for next year, because a lot of athletes have had their, you got stuck. You signed up for a race in 2019, you anticipated on doing in 2020, and now it's been shifted to 2021, and you may not be at the same place, you're going to be the same person, you're probably not the same athlete, and sometimes the dates have been changed. Like we went through this with, Muncie, if you signed up for that, it was a July race, now it's an October race. Madison 70.3, you signed up for it originally, and it was going to be a June race, now it's a September race, and then I just found this out like a few minutes ago, like we kind of had a spoiler alert, or maybe some inside intel first reported by the Zoom call on C26, but Traverse City is no longer a race, which one of the guys on our call alluded that yesterday. It's now Michigan 70.3. I think it's going to be in Frankfurt, and the new date is like 2 weeks before Ironman Chattanooga, so that's putting people kind of in a bind who had that race deferred. So There's a lot of questions, a lot of moving parts, and I think if there's ever been a year to get help, I think, and just even if you're not getting full-on coach, which we provide that as well, the club is a great opportunity for you to kind of, tell us what your races are, have us take care of the planning for it. Mike does an outstanding job of communicating and giving feedback and making sure things are taken care of. So check that out again. That's C26triathlon.com. Click on the coaching tab, scroll down, club, click, purchase, and you're set.
Yeah, and you mentioned the call you have with the athletes every week, the Zoom call. We put that in our online hub, and that comes with the club membership, just one of the many, many benefits that come along with it, along with your training plan. And you also mentioned as we are coaches and athletes, and I'm kind of finally starting to turn that corner a little bit again. The old athlete.
Well, I got to, I spent the last the last few months making you feel bad.
Yeah, you did.
I'd come in, and here I am thinking I'm motivating you by being on the bike every day, and you'd walk in I was training for Texas 70.3. I kind of got back in the groove of things, and I'd be like, hey, maybe I'm motivating him. It's like that positive peer pressure. And you'd walk in the back door some days, and you'd look at me and be like, oh, motherfucker. I was like, I can't believe you're in here making me feel
and I'm
like
sulking.
It's like, you're at the office and you go to the lunchroom and you're unpacking like your McDonald's and your Snickers bars and your Coca-Cola Classic. And then here comes, Sally with her mixed green salad and club soda. And you're like, of course, making me feel bad. And I came in this morning pretty early. And when I left yesterday, you had been on the treadmill, which was, and if you guys don't, no one knows Mike as well as I do, but I've never seen you on a treadmill or even heard of you participating in any kind of activity on a treadmill. Yeah, and when you came in yesterday, really. I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean you're getting on the treadmill? Like, I don't know who this person is. Like, what are you doing? And then I came in this morning and I went and tested the pool. Because we've got a person coming in.
Should have been about okay.
We have a person, an athlete, one of our athletes coming in tomorrow to participate in a hub experience, which you have here at the hub in Chattanooga. It's a full-on training center. But I came in there to test the pool, and I saw some water on the ground, and I thought, that dude, he was in the pool again. He stuck it to me. To be fair, Mike also lives 2 stories above it, so it's not like he has too many excuses. But you did. You're kind of making me feel bad. Like I'm taking a little bit of time off of structured unstructuredness.
See how it goes. You go down, and I got to get right in there.
Neither one of us. I'm like, you're just kind of kicking me while I'm down. I was like, God, that guy. But you are.
It was a fun story though. Last night I went up to I was thinking. Because I've been trying to do a short pool session daily with every other day bike and run, short, easy, just to try and get back in the groove. And I was going through some commenting with some of the club folks, and one of the ladies said that she had actually gone home after work and fell asleep, and somebody came in and said, hey, I thought you were going to swim tonight. And she said she got up, went outside, and went to the pool and swam. What? And then I'm like, okay, that's going to be an inspiration. So immediately after that, I went down and did it. So yeah, I felt good about that, and actually felt really good afterwards. So, but I am dealing with those get back into it sorenesses. I can tell that it's like, wow, man, it's been a little bit. Even that little 30-minute treadmill kind of knocked me down a little bit. And I've been running a little bit before this, but I think the treadmill thing, it might be a different mindset. You're going to have to get used to it, yeah. But good for you, man. I'm glad you're back on it, and you're letting me fall by the wayside and just kind of go totally detrain, put on there 45 pounds, and there we go. We're back in the same cycle. No. Ups and downs. Ups and downs. That's kind of what we do. I will say, I want to, before we kind of go into the meat of the podcast, and I want to talk about Challenge Daytona for a second, but I found this week for me, we talked about on Monday, we went through some of the December rules that we have for our squad in terms of being more relaxed and being flexible and prioritizing yourself and your kind of mental, emotional health this month, and just kind of doing things freely. And I'm waiting to get back into the swing of things here in a week and a half probably. And this week is my first real unstructured week of just kind of doing what I want. And I've ran a few times. I biked. I need to get in the pool, to be honest with you, if I want to earn another run, because I'm kind of trying to abide by the same rules that I gave our athletes. But what I have found is that, and I think I don't know if I want to go here with the conversation there or not, but I went through Thanksgiving, and I was like, it was great timing. I will say, one of the greatest things about a November race or that time of that weekend is for Texas 7.3 got moved, or doing Ironman Cozumel in Arizona. It's the weekend before Thanksgiving. There is no better post-week race than to have it overloaded with awesomeness, which is Thanksgiving, which is just food galore, family, friends, relaxing, and not doing anything. Point. I mean, I put on 9 pounds in 10 days, and I'm 100% happy with it. And because I just did what I wanted to. But what I found this week is that, and I think a lot of us do this, we do this with diets, and we do it with training, and we do it with pretty much everything in life. We like to go full. We got either our foot's on the accelerator or it's on the brake. We don't really kind of know what it's like to just coast or be in the middle. We're always full on. We're either 100% on track with our diet or 100% not. So when I woke up Monday, I was like, all right, I'm going to get back into it. This is the week. I'm going to start eating right again. I'm going to start getting back in the groove. I'm going to work out every day. I ran and biked on Monday, and I was like, I'm in the zone, and I was eating right. And what I've found this week is that I'm not there yet, mentally, emotionally, and physically, to kind of put all the pieces back together. I think it's hard to be disciplined across,
your nutrition and fueling and your training all at the same time. It's just a lot to kind of do all at once. And so what I kind of committed to myself this week was, okay, well, maybe if you're not feeling it, pick which one are you really feeling this week? Are you really feeling like I could probably zone in on nutrition this week and kind of get myself back into a place where, and to be honest, like it's probably the best place to start, because I think obviously the better you eat, the better you feel. And if you're going to feel better, you're probably you're more likely to actually get in your training. So this week, it's Thursday. I took Tuesday as a rest day. Ran yesterday. I probably swam today. Not you made me feel guilty. But I've eaten clean this whole week. Like I've fueled well. I've eaten right. I haven't really, eaten things that I, normally think that I probably shouldn't eat. And I'm feeling good. And I think that's probably the first kind of step in like getting things back totally. It's not like I've got to eat discipline and train discipline all back at the same time and I'm ready to go, because it can be overwhelming. And then what happens is you feel like, oh, well, I'm just not going to do any of it. If I can't do one, I'm not doing any. Or if I can't have both, I'm not doing any. And so that's kind of maybe a positive way that if you're listening, you're kind of thinking about, oh, well, I did a late season race, or I really want to get back into it. It means I got to eat right. I got to hire a nutritionist, got to get a coach. I got to do it all at once. And it's like, oh crap. Like I went from total flexibility, not needing or wanting any accountability, to now that's basically all I do with every move that I make. And it can be overwhelming. And the personal expectations you put on yourselves can be daunting, which can make you fail and crumble and create, moments of self-sabotage or even overtraining and getting burnt out early in the year. So if you're thinking about doing that, like just wade in slowly. No need to do a cannonball back into the triathlon training pool. Wade in. Be like, the old ladies on spring break where they kind of wade into the ocean like real nice and soft. They don't want to get their hair wet, even though Jimmy's like about to drown 10 feet out. They like really slow roll because they don't want to get their hair wet. Do that with your training this month. Take it easy. Figure something out that works for you. For me, personally this week, it's like just getting back to the basics, eating right and taking care of myself, and trying to get as much sleep as I possibly can. And that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm not feeling guilty.
Well, let me ask you this, because, as I said a few podcasts ago, I've been watching you.
You do watch me like a hawk, dude.
No, but I'm just paying attention. And I think that, do you feel like, because you haven't been working out maybe as much and you've been focused on the diet and getting the good rest and everything, because you always have ideas and everything. But I feel like this week you've been pumping them out a little bit harder. You've been coming with some ideas, some big thoughts. And we're actually discussing them like we're actually kind of doing a business.
Don't jinx this. No, that's... I was actually thinking about that yesterday, because I have been like, how I get, like I go through, I text you yesterday. I was like, all right, talk me off a ledge, talk some sense to me. And of course you're like, oh, I love it. And I'm like, great, we'll jump together. But I think it just goes to show you that you can't, that balance is ridiculous in the sense of, if there's only so much your body and your mind can really wrap its brain around to do well at one time. And not to say that like you can't do a couple things great, but like when you take a step back, like I have been like the last week or two without doing any training, and then kind of Thanksgiving, it's more of a relaxed time of year for me personally, and also as an athlete myself, but also as a coach, because there's a huge race I'm going to talk about eventually, Challenge this weekend. We have a lot of athletes racing. Other than that, it's the most relaxed time of year as a coach. Get to the holidays now, people are racing. It's the end of the year. People are generally more flexible, and so it allows more like time, energy for my mind. And like when it comes to and it helps as a coach. I'm always in like problem solving mode, even though sometimes there aren't problems to be solved. Like that's how my brain works. I like it.
You create.
So I create. So you create them. Sometimes it's just sometimes even hard to just turn off. Like I was playing. It's not I think a good or a bad thing, but I was playing football again with Haley the other night, and in the middle of it, I just had some like idea that popped in my head. And I was like, all right, Hayden. Of course he's 4. Of course he has like a memory like you need him to have. I was like, when we get done, I need you to remind me of this. And he was like, all right, kid, gotcha. And then of course we got playing, and he can't remember anything. And unless it's something that, I don't want him to remember, then he's like, I remember exactly last Tuesday you said this. And I'm like, oh, I didn't say that. And he's like, oh, yes, you did. And I'm like, oh, great. But if I say go brush your teeth, he doesn't go brush his teeth. But anyway, so yeah, I've been just like I guess my extra energy, I guess, if you will, maybe that's what you're going for. Like it has been, into like new idea, not new ideas, but different ways that we can help our current athletes and directions that we can go with what we can do for the community in general. And yes, my brain is currently in 100% overdrive at the moment.
Well, that's what they say. I mean, I don't know if we talked about it on here or you and I just talked about it, but that time when Matthew McConaughey lost all that weight and he wasn't eating it all, he said he got smarter. You know, his like the blood flow was just going to his brain or something like that. And I don't know if maybe, I mean, the other part of that is I've been starting to exercise and I feel like I'm a little bit more mentally engaged too. So it's kind of goes both ways. And I think that podium swing is what we want to just kind of keep an eye on, you know. I don't know if you've got something on your mind, but
I do, but I can tell every time he looks at his phone, I know he has like some quote that he listened to from somewhere that he's about to.
Well, I was just gonna. You probably saw the quote, right?
I did, but what you're doing is like what people say when they ask people to move. You know, they're like, hey, you know, I don't know if like, you know, do you mind helping me move like the other day? And you're like, and their answer's like, oh yeah, sure, man. Hoping that they're going to be like, I don't know that meaning. You're like, oh, of course I'll help you move. Then you're thinking like, please don't ask me, please don't ask me, please don't ask me. And that's what you just did when you were like, hey, do you have a topic today? And he pulls out this like 17-page laminated like binder. Not that he's got anything planned. Go ahead, Mike, what you got?
Well, it's just kind of like I said, I actually wrote a little blog about this because it moved me a little bit. And it was a quote from Seth Godin interview that I heard, and it's from his new book or something, but it says, genius is the person who can most truly be who they are. And I thought that was just such a great quote because I think that, at least for me personally in triathlon, and I had gone through, what I wrote about in that blog was sort of this thing where I used to be kind of more, I was an athlete growing up, and then I went full bore into this whole idea of being an artist, musician, and things of that nature. And then that really didn't seem to be filling the bill. So I went like, when I met you, I started getting into triathlon. It was all in on triathlon. And I feel like, you know, what you're talking about earlier with the mental acuity and the energy, I feel like there's like, it's a balance, and we know the balancing, but like, can we be who we are and still be like full on triathletes? And I think that's a good thing because I think it fills the cup, you know. It's like, we can't let go of who we are just because we're, you know, training for Ironman a lot of times. And I just think it's an interesting concept to think about. And also with training, it's sort of like, just don't be comparing yourself to some other people. And we talk about that a lot, but like the idea of just being where you are in your training. And I kind of am there right now where I'm all about spending this whole month just going like super easy and get my body just back in the mode, you know, before I try to do anything. I feel comfortable not having to prove anything to myself right now. So
it's a great topic, and we could talk about it every podcast, I think, for athletes, especially for triathletes, that it's not just a triathlete, I don't want to say issue, but it's a human issue, right? It's for people in every avenue of life, with, you know, their relationships with friends, or comparing yourself to people you see on Facebook or Instagram or whatever, like, or people in your workplace, and you're like comparing yourself to, you know, Jim at the cubicle over or whatever. And in triathletes, like people in your club, it's like we love to compare people. And I think, and we've talked about this before, is like, first off, no one's going to care ever as much as you are, ever, about anything, about your own goals. No one's going to care. And athletes will even say that sometimes, like if I'm talking to them in email or text or phone, it's like I just want somebody to care. Or it's nice having a coach because I know someone else cares. But the way that a coach cares is much different, because like you're not looking, and I even tell this to athletes sometimes, and it may sound harsh, but this is not going to come to a surprise, especially to our athletes, is I'm not a big rah-rah guy, right? I'm not like, you're very rarely going to see me like, you know, jumping on the couch like Tom Cruise and Oprah, like, you know, when she was jumping on the couch doing his like
rarely,
thing, like,
but occasionally,
you know, rarely, occasionally, you know, I might get on the couch and I'll fall off and, you know, tear my ACL.
I think you're more apt to go to tears.
It's true. I'm probably much more of an emotional guy than people probably assume, but I'm not that. It's not because I'm not proud or happy. It's because what I want them to feel this internal sense of accomplishment with or without me. Like, my job is not to make them happy. My job is to allow them to become happy with who they are and what they do outside of me, because I won't always be there. I won't be there on race day. I won't be there for training. No, and I can't, but I also, that's why I try, I don't restrain myself from giving. I'm just very careful about the when and the how that I do, because I don't ever want athletes to do their workouts for me. I want them to do them for them, truly and genuinely for them and who they are trying to be authentically, not because they're trying to impress their coach or they want to get this big like rah, cheer awesome stamp. Like, I'm just not going to give it, not because I'm not proud of you, but because I want you to do what you do for you and not for me, and stay true to yourself. And sometimes we already live in a world that's so attached and connected to all these media outlets and social media, apps and whatever, that there's always a way and an avenue and an opportunity to compare yourself to other people and what they're doing. That most oftentimes, like, the only goal we have is to, basically, pinball our goals and our expectations based on who we see and what they're doing. And it's like, you're never really answering. And that's why people live their lives and honestly, like, become so unfulfilled in training and endurance sports, is because they're never really doing it truly and solely for them. It's 100% for them. It's for no one else. And I think, to be honest, I think that was part of my exhaustion when I finished my kind of, isolated, indoor 70.3, or just bike run that I did, 2 weeks ago, is I did it 100% for me, for no one else. And I didn't get, there was no like race hoopla. There was no race result. There wasn't going to be, no, and there was no one on iron track. There was no one, but it was, I think that made it actually more exhausting because it meant more to me because it was just for me. It wasn't, not selfishly, but it was, when I invested in it, when I trained for it, it was just for me. It wasn't because I wanted to beat so-and-so or I wanted to do this. It was because I just wanted to do the best I could. And I think when you empty yourself like that, and the more it takes out of you, it takes out, I guess the equal amount that you put in. But I think sometimes we forget that when we do train so hard and we do put everything we have out into a race for ourselves, but that's also why it hurts more sometimes, right? It's that if you don't achieve something that you worked so hard to achieve, if it's just for you, but it's a fine, not a fine line. It is a hard line to walk in terms of not staying, not becoming distracted. As an athlete, we go through this sometimes too, as, running, a business is like, not to get distracted by other things and just kind of stay true to the same principles that we had when we started, at a coffee shop in East Nashville. Is like, okay, we really don't have to change anything. We just have to continue to, we can come up with different ideas or different avenues or ways to invest in our athletes and provide them with the best experience possible. But for the most part, we just kind of keep having the same mindset, that we did before. It's like, and, it hasn't really steered us wrong, but we have to remind ourselves that, because there are so many things that can distract you from and make you feel like you have to do more or become more or be better. And oftentimes I think we should sit back and relax and think, well, who am I? Am I really doing it for me? And if I am doing it for me, then why am I doing it for me? But those are sometimes uncomfortable questions to ask ourselves. And a lot of times are uncomfortable because, a lot of people might not have an answer.
Yeah. It's funny because I think the desire to impress is just always lingering in us. And I don't mean just you and me, but like everybody. And there's this, that's why it's so interesting when you bring up the business all the time, because, as we know, there's probably quote unquote better ways to run our business, but like it's the same thing as like, we're very comfortable. I think whenever we get outside of it and we start trying to do those things that people start, that quote unquote proliferate the e-commerce world or the scaling world or all these terms and everything like that, I think we both get a little uncomfortable. And there's been so many times when we have had ideas that seem kind of like right at the time, but it just didn't feel like, I don't know. We didn't feel like we were going hard enough with the business acumen or something like that. But then like a year later, they sink in. And we're like, man, that was the right idea all along. It was like we just went with our gut, from the get-go. We usually do that, but it happens a lot. And I find that interesting. And I think that, with internet and training and social media and all that kind of stuff, we want to inspire people. I think that's part of, and I think that's human nature, and that's okay. But like when you actively try to inspire people, it just doesn't come off right. You know what I mean? Like, and I've done that before in the past where I've, like this whole idea of like, creating memes or like inspirational memes and things like that. It's just like, if they don't come out naturally, you're probably going down the wrong.
Yeah. And I'm going to text you and be like, Mike, are you okay?
Yeah, exactly.
How are you doing? Are you feeling okay?
Look back and I'm like, what was I thinking?
I know.
Man?
It's
like, I'm going to change the world with some memes.
It's so true though. But you see, that's how like, you know, people communicate, do communicate now. But you're so right in that, like, you know, in terms of even no matter what you're doing, athlete, you know, relationship, business, whatever, like a lot of the best ideas are the ones you never do, right? It's like that's the most successful businesses don't act on, you know, all their ideas. They just kind of let them go by the wayside. And that's, you know, like that's something that we've done. Like when we're doing it, like, you know, we kind of went back to something we thought in our gut was the right thing to do. Like way back before we even like launched this training center was, oh, well, you know, I think honestly, like I just kind of want to open it up and I kind of want to make it as free as possible to the athletes that we work with, like across it. Cause our goal with the hub here is not to like have some Orange Theory, you know, Gold's Gym, 95 people doing, you know, CrossFit, bike bar, you know, swim yoga in our studio or our training center every day. It's like, we just wanted to be a place that's like your third place, like your other home, and where you can come and get a workout in and become a better athlete. And I kind of wanted that. It kind of wanted to be free, you know, which sounds crazy. Like that is the worst business model I've ever seen because I'd always have people like, wait a minute, like you run an online business, you're doing this. Like, why are you doing this? You're going like, how are you going to make money? And it kind of skews you and you kind of, you don't lose your way, but you're kind of like, maybe they're right. Maybe I am stupid, or maybe that doesn't make sense. Like I don't have a college degree. I'm not very educated, but I was like, I just kind of felt like it was the right thing to do. Like I feel like everything comes full circle when you take care of people, like, and you invest in people, they invest back. And so we kind of came that yesterday, and that's why I was like, hey, that's when I texted you. I was like, talk me off a ledge, but here's what I'm thinking. You know, we basically open up the hub for free to every athlete that we work with, or all of our athletes that are on customized coaching. Just say, hey, we'll open up all these days. You can come whenever you want to. The full experience with the swim analysis, bike fit, bike testing, run analysis, and form. Like, we'll put up dates. You just come and we'll take care of you. You know, until we start, especially until we start having like multiple races, like it happened like back to back, like, you know, 2 races that happened in succession for Ironman. I was like, yeah, let's just do it. And whatever. But you know, most people would say, that sounds like the worst idea ever. Like, what do you mean you're not going to make money? Like, whatever. We have fun. We love what we do. Like, we love working with people. And honestly, if it helps our athletes and invest in them, then it's all worth it because, you know, that's what we do. But it's hard to, and you see athletes, like I talk to athletes about this all the time. It's like, well, you're great at what you do, or you really like, why are you getting pulled this direction to do this event? And like, oh, well, so-and-so's do it. And you're like, okay, well, that's so-and-so. Why are you feeling, and honestly, what usually happens is it's because they're not confident and concrete into where they are at the moment, that they are easily dragged towards somebody else. Like when you see somebody in the zone, like that's like, I'll give, you know, if you're going out to eat and you're somebody's like, all right, go ahead, get you some fries. You're like, no, I'm good. You're like, you're in the zone. I respect that, you know, but if they're not, they're like, sure, give me a couple extra slices of pizza, you know, what's some extra cheesecake and, you know, some cheese dip on top. Like, that's me. They're easily influenced when you're not really concreted in what you're doing and kind of in the zone. And athletes do the same thing. They see that and you see this with people who are very erratic with their training, or they bring to you a different method or form of training. Well, I read on, you know, triathletemag.org that, you know, this is the greatest way to improve, you know, swim stamina. And you're like, all right, be back, stay in your lane and come back tomorrow. You know, it's like you just get easily distracted when you're not confident in what you're doing. And a lot of athletes lack that confidence. And the same goes for people. Like everyone's looking for something that's new all the time. So a lot of people would say that's why the housing market has been so crazy the last few years, among other reasons, because people are generally unhappy and they're always wanting and looking for something better. Mm-hmm. They're not okay with where they're always wanting to move or uproot themselves because they always want the biggest, next best thing. Yet they're just not, and that's not everyone, obviously, but some people will tell you that that's been a big reason the real estate market is boomed, because people aren't okay, or they're never okay just being where they are and never happy and content. They're always looking for something else to fulfill a part of their life. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. To me, it kind of makes sense, honestly. But it's true. And having that, I think walking that line of being okay with who you are authentically and your genuine self, and having the quiet confidence to kind of walk that line and do that and follow that path takes a tremendous amount of confidence and stillness in a way, to just like be able to cancel out all the chaos and noise and be like, whatever. Like, you can have that. Like, I hear you, I'm just not listening, which is, guys do that anyway, but it's like, that's what we do. It's like, selective hearing. That is what you need to have, like, and especially with training and stuff, because there's so many 9 billion ways to do this better. I mean, you could search the internet, like how to do this, and there's like 80 of them are sponsored, and like you're addicted, you're like, wait a minute, this is just something simple. If I was thinking about it myself, it's hard to stay on track with a lot of things, but you do having that quiet calmness and confidence about who you are and what you're doing but it will ultimately get you to where you want to go faster, instead of having to take, if you're trying to get from point A to point B, you'll get there if you just make a straight shot, versus an athlete or a person or a business that tries to take 17 detours because they think they're all going to be a shortcut, right? It's actually going to end up taking you longer than had you just stayed the course and done the thing right the first time.
Yeah, you can get really distracted. That's why I get a kick out of the fact, we were talking about this yesterday, but like in the area where our hub is, they're doing a lot of construction, so we know a lot of the contractors and workers and stuff in the area, and they keep walking by, and we'll see them outside every once in a while. And because they all think it's like a gym, like you said, like a Gold's Gym or something. Like, hey, how's business going? You guys doing okay?
Mm-hmm.
We're like,
doing fine. We're
doing
just kind of hanging out, man.
We're just like walking on flip flops, and we have our events or our things, and people come in when they want.
When we want
everything's great,
yeah.
But you're right about that staying on course thing, man. I can't agree more, because I know that when it's so easy to get off, man, and I'm just like that guy, right? And you see me all the time. Like my new thing is fascia stretching, by the way.
Your new thing is fascia stretching?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is the opposite of stretching.
I was going to say, that's good talk. Yeah.
Good talk.
Yeah, good talk.
No, I'm really interested in it because I'm so sore, as I get older, I get like these, creaks, and I think it has a lot to do with my diet, to be honest, and just not being ready to do what I've been doing. So I'm being real patient with it. But like you said, man, the faster I try to go outside of my zone, the slower the whole process is going to go. And I'm racing Ironman Chattanooga next September, and I've got plenty of time. And I'm really taking this as sort of a opportunity and we could probably segue into that, what you were going to talk about, even though you haven't said it, or maybe you've already talked about it.
I haven't had a chance. I mean, you've been freaking
I mean, we got, half the podcast left to talk about your stuff. So, but I think it was going to be was it going to be about getting out of shape is important?
No. Well, I wanted to talk about Challenge Daytona, but I'll get there eventually. But,
okay. But I saw that post you made about the marathoner.
Yeah, no, Des Lennon was posted. It was like I was kind of just reaffirming because in part of the rules I put out for athletes, it was like, you have to take 6 days off this month. Like, you have to give yourself a ton of break. And you have some that just, whine and cry, I don't want to take 6 days off. I'm just going to get out of shape. And like, well, tough shit. And part of her article was about that she takes 2 weeks off after every marathon, and then takes like the whole next month to just kind of build. And then she picks a race. And she says, she was just saying that it's important. And this is such a great word. And I could at least, send this to us. He was a long-time friend of ours, and she was like, I wish everyone would kind of understand this, and that she literally says, as a professional, elite level marathoner, she's like, I think it's important to get unfit, and which I think, or which is, to lose fitness, right? And it is like, you can't continuously go upward. And that is like, that's where you see, that's why I'm gonna get grumpy. That's why I have such a disdain sometimes with this addiction that athletes have for driving themselves into the ground with all of these virtual races and doing things. I'm like, I get it if you just want to do it to participate, but a lot of athletes just drive themselves into the ground. They don't allow themselves to recover and get better. Then they wonder why they plateau and don't get any better. They always feel run down. They're always tired and they can't figure it out. Well, it's because they drive themselves into the ground. They never give themselves a period of rest. They're addicted to training. They're not addicted to getting better, which is a huge difference. Like, you can say, oh, well, I just don't want to lose fitness. That's a personal issue, honestly, not a triathlon training one. Is like the inability and the lack, I guess, of confidence to take rest is a flaw. It doesn't make you more motivated than the other person. I mean, in most, elite level athletes will tell you that they all get hurt at some point. And most of them tell you that they get hurt because they overdo it, because they have this fear of falling behind, because it is obviously when you're at the tip top of any of any sport, you're always pushing the boundaries of what your body can do. So, I mean, I would venture to say every elite level marathoner has broken their foot or had a stress fracture in the leg at some point in their career, no matter what. Doesn't mean their training was wrong. It just means that at some point, in order to squeeze that last very small percentage out of your body, you have to figure out what it can do. That is something that's very hard for age group athletes to see. It's like, I would venture to say a lot of professional athletes, probably take more time off than some age groupers because they're so addicted to that, like that cycle of always having to do it and do it and do it, and then always go harder and harder and harder. And that's like the only way to get better. And it's just not. You have to give yourself a period of that time to your body to be like, oh, okay, now I'm relaxing. I can do this. This is fine. To spring back. You can't just continuously beat yourself into the ground. And that's why I think this time of year is always a good thing in terms of the timing of it, as well as the end of the year. I was talking to an athlete earlier on the phone who's doing Challenge Daytona, and I was like, yeah, dude, this has been a long year for you, because he trained for an early season 70.3 in San Juan, which is the first one that was canceled. Oh, God. He was in the hotel, had just checked in, and they were like, yeah, you got to go home or cancel the race because of COVID. And so that was back in like February, early March. I was like, dude, it's been a long year. It's December. Like, we've been doing this all year long. So expect a very lengthy break after this where you can do whatever the hell you want to and relax. You just need it. You just can't always be on that upward trend without kind of, it's not, you shouldn't look at it as regressing. You should look at it as allowing your body to fully progress in terms of where you are currently in your athlete life cycle and where you want to go for the next year. You have to have that period. You can't always just go and running yourself in the ground. And a lot of it is just, a mental and emotional thing. I think running is a little bit different because it is so heavy and hard on your body because it is such an impact sport. But after I read that and I was thinking, like, professional sports, I was like, do you see the professional athlete that's come into spring training or in like preseason, like they look straight out of shape. Like they
certainly used to.
Now
I feel like they get injured.
Sometimes some of them do. It's like but some of them but they'll take time off and do nothing. Like they won't pick up a basketball. They won't even go to the gym. Like they won't do anything. Like you have to have those periods if you want to have longevity in any sport. You have to take time to let your body and your soul and your mind rejuvenate and get back to where it can handle. Again, going back to it on a very much smaller scale, like racing and kind of slowly getting yourself back into a break, like not ramping it up full speed, but just kind of slowly dripping, positive things back in. They're going to get you back to being full on, because you can only be full on for so long until something's going to break. Either going to break physically or you're going to break mentally and emotionally to a point to where you just don't want to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm. What was that thing? Because what are they calling that now in the NBA? When LeBron takes days off, what are they?
What do they call? Oh, they're not counting minutes.
Maintenance day.
It's like something management. It's like minute. It's not minute management. I know what you're talking about. They're holding they're like have a certain amount of minutes that they have plugged in that he can play for a season, and they basically say like they have scheduled rest. It's like planned rest or time off for games like that they do for athletes now versus, back then they were just like, dude, if you could walk, you're playing. And they'd be like, sure I am. Like, I don't want any time off.
As I start getting back into this thing, and you said, you need to take a month off or whatever. And I've taken basically a year off. So I was like, I've been in and out and dabbling and stuff like that, but I've never, gotten close to really where I would want to be for training for a race or anything like that. But, the one thing I'm not afraid of is my speed.
Now, what do you mean you're not afraid of it?
Well, I'm not afraid that I've lost it, really. I can just tell. So I guess what I'm getting at is like I feel like there may be. It's an endurance thing, obviously, but like I'm just kind of going back to this idea, especially if you're not ready for it. This idea of going too fast or too far, too fast, especially, is that I just feel like it's still in me, but I just can't do it yet, So I'm thinking about it in those terms, and I'm not like stressing that at all. I'm just trying to, it's almost like a extended 2-month warm-up or something like that, where I have no interest in really pushing the boundaries or anything like that. And I just think it's a really good time to do it. And how that sort of has been translating as a coach for me has been interesting, because this is that time of year to kind of do that. So I'm out of shape, and I'm feeling like, that I'm always leaning towards, don't push it too hard. It's like, it feels natural to say that versus being the coach. It's going to be like, I think you had a little more in you today, or whatever like that. I mean, think about that line. It's like, how often do you say that? I think I'm sure you do sometimes when you're really in tune with an athlete and they're peaking for some kind of race or something like that. Do you give them that little bit of a shove-a-roo? Is that kind of a pretty rare deal?
It's
I used to do that with me.
It's pretty well.
That was sort of back in the day.
To be fair, no, I'll rarely ever comment, not negatively, but criticizing physical effort. And with you, that was not the case. But I always challenge your mental effort, like your focus and your ability to do things. But you also have to. You also have to.
I was trying to remember how that used to go. I mean, that was back before. That was way back. But
I mean, I remember specifically. I don't remember a lot from back in those days, but I remember I feel like I sent you a scathing text message one night.
Sort of like I sent something like, "Hey, what do you think you're going? What do you? It doesn't matter. You don't even care. You don't even care."
Yeah,
I'll show him.
That
worked.
It did work. You have to be delicate, and you have to know, like, not everyone has the same button to push, and that's part of coaching. Like, you have to understand people. It's like you have to understand what makes people tick, and some people will tell you that they respond best to, oh, well, you just gotta tell me to do it, and like, you just think that because that's what you hear, that's what you see in the movies. That's not how most people work. That doesn't get most people to do what you want them to do, or to get out of themselves what you think they can get out of themselves when they doubt it. You have to know how the athletes work, because if you tell some people that, they're going to just hide in their shell and never come out, or they're going to feel like totally terrified and not do it. Mm-hmm. I knew at that point, because of your competitive spirit, like if I took a backhanded jab at your level of commitment level, then you would respond with, a fury, and you did. And so you have to know. Sometimes you have to give an encouraging word. Sometimes you have to know that hey, I love you. Just keep your chin up. Because the thing about it is that this is one of the biggest kind of nuances of coaching, is that if you tell someone to do something they're not in a place to be able to do, then you're doing both yourselves a disservice, right? So I can't say, hey, you've got to get your act together and get all these sessions done when their life is in shambles, because what you're doing, you're just setting them up for success. They literally can't do them. And so to give them something else they're going to fail at is it's just terrible to do to an athlete, and it doesn't get anyone anywhere. Like, the athlete has to be at least in a spot where they can respond in a way that is positive. And coaching isn't about, dragging people around and just, browbeating them to death. It's about hopefully putting them in the best spot to, this is how coaching is. It's like working with, it's like working with toddlers. Yeah. But it's like working with a child, and you can give them a puzzle that is appropriate for them to do, where they will feel like they can, not that's easy, but that's appropriate, that they can do by themselves with little or no help, and then they can do it and they can have fun with it. They can also feel challenged, and then they can complete it. And then, but what times a lot of happens is a lot of athletes give themselves puzzles that they cannot figure out, that they cannot do. They feel like failures, or they work with a coach, they purchase a training plan, and they get a puzzle that's, 6,000 pieces for ages 45 and up. And they're like, I barely know how to put my socks on. And they're like, all right,
that's
now
mom's kind of puzzle.
Right, right. It's like, how am I going to do this? And you feel like an absolute failure doing it. It's so confusing. It's so daunting. It seems so incredibly impossible. That's going to take forever, and do by yourself. You're like, I'm done. I can't do this. And they quit. Like, everything has to be appropriate. So yeah, like you can, but no, like, I'm not really like you got to do this. Sometimes I'll say, I'll sometimes push people into believing in themselves more, that, hey, like, or mostly it's like a mental and emotional block. I'll be like, hey, the next time you do this, I want you to fail. Right. It's like, and that's like, I guess that's one of the ways that I challenge athletes, both physically and emotionally and mentally at the same time. Is I want you to do this, but but I want you to fail. I want you to run as fast as you can, or bike as hard as you can, or swim, and just see what happens. I don't care if you fail. It's still a success. I'm giving you the green light. I don't care if you don't finish. Let's just see. But a lot of times it's to break through that barrier in order to get to the next level, because so many athletes, if they train for a long period of time, their body quickly surpasses where they are mentally, because they're still mentally and emotionally in a place that, looks at themselves in the mirror as an athlete or a person who can't achieve much, who's not worthy of much, who's always going to be this or is never going to be that. And their body's like, hello, they're like, running off in the sunset. Like I'm leaving you behind. Like I'm becoming this like really awesome athlete, and you're just not giving me the credit that I need to have. And you're not using me the way that you should be using you. So sometimes you have to get athletes to be like, listen, you either got to trust yourself and who you are now, and not keep, running your own triathlete life with someone who's 10 years behind. You have to challenge people that way. But again, it's like you going back to, the outside of the podcast is like, you have to be, that person also has to know like who they really are and what they want to really accomplish. Because if you don't, and you say things the wrong way, then I could veer them off in a different and more challenging, direction.
Mm-hmm. When you were saying that about you want them to go out and try and fail, the first thought I had was our camps. And not that you actually say that at our camps, but a lot of people come into the camps with this idea that they are going to fail or they can't do certain things, whether it's some of the rides we do or the runs we do. And like run camp specifically, I feel like I see that all the time. I mean, maybe it's just because we're always talking to them, we're around them a lot, but you see people come in there, athletes come in there every time, and that are scared because, there's tremendous elevation. There's a lot of trails. Maybe they don't run trails that much or what have you, but they always go out and I think in the back of their mind, which is not a bad thing. I think it's a good thing to maybe doubt that you can do it, but you're going to go for it, right? And then when a bunch of people are around, it really kind of helps you lift you, and it like takes you to a different place. So when you tell people to go out and fail on their own, I think that's a tall order sometimes for people, because no matter what, you even if you're going out there to do that, there's always this weird little internal governor in your body and your mind, it's sort of like not letting you do it, but if you're out there with other people and things like that, I think that's the thing about, we always talk about, it's been my dream to sort of like train for a triathlon where I train for the run with really good runners, and I go out and cycle with really good cyclists and swim with swimmers. And I think because that it scares the crap out of me to think about that. But I think that, for whatever reason, either by osmosis or whatever it is, you kind of just start getting better and going out of your comfort zone naturally because, well, I mean, when you're around people and you see people, how they're doing it, I think it just kind of sinks in, or there's a part of that. And then they have faith in you. They're like, come on, you're going out for a run that feels ridiculous for you, and the runner, it's no big deal. So suddenly you have to kind of find a middle ground, right? And that just pulls you along,
Yeah, so. And as you were talking, like I started thinking through like that, and I'll say that sometimes, and I even have workouts that are like, have in there, it's like, permission to fail, or permission to, like go for broke, like things like that. And I think, the way that we should articulate it probably in a different way is it's more so like, permission to believe, permission to believe you're not the same that you thought you were, that you have this, you have what's inside you to do this. You have the ability to do this. You have the run speed, you have the bike power, you have the swim stand, like permission. This is your permission to believe. This is your opportunity to take this time for yourself to get out there and do something special. But the thing is like, and a lot of times, and that's the thing with coaching. And I think one of the parts of having a coach that often athletes kind of either disregard or don't think of before they have one is that it's nice to have someone allow you to show yourself grace, or to open the door to showing you that wasn't a disappointment or a failure, but it was actually part of growth. And that like when it was one of the very first things, I think Steve Magnus, one of the first guests we ever had on, and one of the things he said was how valuable he thought it was for his athletes to finish a race and know that they had someone by their side to talk through it with, no matter what. Like it wasn't just your failure or just your success. You did it with someone, and they'll be that ear that you can, voice your happiness, your concerns to, because let's be honest, and most people say it's like, nobody else really cares. like your family kind of pretends. They're like, yeah, go ahead, go out and do your little bike today, Johnny, and like do whatever. Like, no one really cares. But to have someone that can kind of help you process all the successes and the disappointments and the met expectations or the failed met expectations of the race and the amount of pressure put on ourselves, like to have someone, it's like having your own therapist. And believe me when I tell you, it is very much like being a therapist as a coach, like to feel like you're not doing this whole thing alone. And because life in general can feel lonely. The last year has felt hell of a lonely. And to be able to have someone in a sport that can be very isolating and very solo and very, so individually focused, like to have a team or a group or a person that is along the ride with you is invaluable. But you have to, and that's the biggest thing as a coach. Like, and I think if you're a coach listening, like that's a very important thing to portray to your athletes is this, like it's not your job to make them do things. It's to allow them, it's to kind of get themselves out of their own way, to allow them to see the best version of not what they are, but who they could be. And then it's your job to help progress them in a way that gets them there in a healthy manner. Because if you don't, then they're going to get there anyway. But it's a great time of year to challenge yourself in those ways. It's always a good time to, go out and, if you want to say, try to fail in a workout, or you can just, figure out who you are and what you got. And that's why the sport's so great. You're never done. You're always figuring something out. You're literally never finished. And that's also why coaching is so great. It's like the work is never done. Athletes are literally never satisfied. They're always looking at something else, to do something else, a longer distance, or to get faster, or to cut this down. Like, you're always moving on to the next one. I think that's why it also keeps people in the sport for as long as it does. It's because there's always something, and that also makes it really challenging to navigate both as an athlete and as a person. Can I talk about Challenge Daytona now?
Oh, yeah. I thought you already did.
No. Mike took a nap.
No, I did. No, I was just trying to decide if we were getting too close.
No, I can
bring up new stuff, or should.
Let me do a quick Challenge Daytona.
Take your time.
Take your time. Where else we got to go? We got to go to our network meeting. Down the road, the Middle Tennessee Chattanooga Networking Association.
Did you pay the chamber?
I didn't. That's all right. I'm going to have a McAllister's catered in for him next week, and that'll smooth things over. No, Challenge Daytona is this weekend. If you're not familiar or you just generally don't follow it, it is a race that is happening, obviously, in Daytona, Florida. They are having it. I figured,
you said that before.
I said that before. I can't imagine they're going to cancel it this close.
After the podcast comes out.
I know, right? I'm jinxing it. They're having it. I'm just going to say it. They're having it. They're doing age groupers on Saturday, professionals on Sunday. They've got kind of their own bubble. They're kind of doing it. I think it's actually pretty neat. Like they're very lucky they have the setup. They can do it right now with the pandemic and the screening and how they're doing things. And they're going to protect athletes. But what I want everyone to understand and hopefully do is obviously, follow your friends and athletes. We have a bunch of athletes racing on Saturday, but follow and watch live the professional race on Sunday. I can't tell you how exciting it's going to be. It is a field, in my opinion, more loaded in a lot of ways than you'll ever see in Ironman Kona World Championships because of the distance. Because one is because the distance itself is 70.3. You have Ironman specialists, 70.3 specialists, and then you also have people who are primarily ITU specialists and ITU triathlon. For those of you who don't know, are athletes who compete at an Olympic level for World Triathlon. Then they do sprints in Olympics, so they're insanely fast people. Like, they are all about speed and short. But it's not that they do long rides, even for that distance. You have a lot of athletes who are jumping up to meet, and it's a gigantic prize purse. It's like $1.3 million. The PTO put up all this money for it. I don't know how, people are handing out money these days. But so the field is insanely deep, and you're going to have people who are ITU short course specialists. You're going to have people who are 70.3. That's their main focus. You're going to have Ironman people coming down. You don't have Danielle Reef, I think, pulled out. Lucy Charles Barkley pulled out. I don't think Jan Frodeno's going to be there. Of course, everybody's like, oh, Lionel Sanders is going to win. He's going to crush everyone's soul. I'm going to tell you now, it's going to be fun to watch because it's going to be fast, and it's just pros. But I'm going to make a prediction, and I'm going to say there's not going to be a single person on the podium, male or female, that hasn't won an ITU or Olympic medal in their career. I think it's going to be absolutely owned by the short course specialists that come from ITU. I think you're going to see the Brownlee brothers be on top. You see, I mean, one of them did Kona last year, so they're not like they're not averse to long course racing. They've done them. Javier Gomez, he did Kona last year. They're on the podium at 70.3 stuff. But in terms of like the guys that really dominate at the longer distance stuff, I think they're going to get, they're probably not going to be a guest on our podcast anytime soon. But I think they're going to get their doors blown off.
Okay.
So I think you're going to see at least a Brownlee, probably a Gomez. I wouldn't be surprised if you actually saw Vincent Louise on the podium for the men, and the women's the same. You might see Ann Hogg, who again is bumped up to long course racing, but she has ITU Olympic medals on her resume. Like I think you're going to see, which is I think a great lesson for you as athletes to understand is like. Age groupers do it the opposite. They jump straight to long course. They always want to do Ironman first, and then what you really see if you want to be the best you can be is like you get fast and you get real fast, and then you take it and make it your fast to far. And that's what these athletes, and even Jan Frodeno, who's like arguably the best triathlete that's ever walked the face of earth, like he owned the ITU space before he bumped up and did long course stuff. Like that's just what you do. Analog, same way. Like that's what you do, and that's how you progress. So I think it'd be fun to watch in general, because one of the dudes that's racing, can't remember his name right now, but he's run a 1:03 open half marathon, which is kind of fast. So to watch these guys run, I think you're gonna have, because the weather's supposed to be insane, which also I think is going to be pretty much the reason. I think probably Johnny Brownlee's probably going to win the whole thing. They're going to be 4 or 5 guys at least running under 110. Is my guess for the half marathon, which is a little quick.
Yeah, that's pretty fast, man. Do you think that this might put challenge more on the map? No, not in this kind. Okay, I didn't know if like maybe the tension and like all of a sudden people.
I don't think it's going to put them on the map they're already. In some countries, like especially in Europe, they're bigger than Ironman. Like they're bigger, but here they'd have to get. I think what they found in Daytona is a unique, very special location. And if they hadn't, I think they lucked into it this year because of COVID and like needing to do it on private property in a very like closed off place. They don't need permitting from places that you normally would because they own the speedway. They've already got permission to have it on property. So. But I don't think it will. I think they will hopefully garner some more support because I think competition is good at every level. So I think Ironman having competition like challenge is great. It's healthy for the sport. It's healthy for event organizers. It's good, and then ultimately it's good for the athletes because we get better experiences and better more opportunities. I hope it does. I had my eyes on racing this year before everything went down. I wish I was going down there to race it. I think it's going to be an awesome event. The athletes that we had that raced it last year said it was fantastic. They said it was a very great event that was put on. So we'll see. And they've only really got one here in the U.S. I think they flopped big when they tried to join with Rev 3 and that whole mess that never really materialized in any way. So, but they do what they do best, which is international races, around the world that, a lot of times are a much better experience than Ironman does. So, kind of like we said about it, it's like, own your own space. And sometimes it's, you don't need to, go into somebody else's space.
Fair enough, man.
Challenge is good. Get it?
Fair enough.
Challenge is good.
Challenge is good. Yeah.
Challenge is good. This has been a pleasure, as it always has been and always will be. Podcast 431 in the books. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, always go to Mike for those, crushingiron@gmail.com. If you have any questions, comments for me, questions, interest, whatever, C26Coach@gmail.com. And if you want to visit our website, and you should, it is C26Triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community, including our new 2021 club membership, coaches tab. Click down 3 spots, click on it. All the info is there. And if there isn't the info you need, always reach out. We've had quite a few people email us trying to ask more specific questions that they might need and taken care of, and we'll get to those as quickly as we can. Have a wonderful weekend.
One more thing. Did you want to talk about the coaching thing?
I'll do that Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, teaser. That's good. I've been in the TV business for a while.
All right, buddy. Well, I appreciate it, man. I'll catch you later.
See you.